Goeiedag! Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens around the world. And this video is actually aimed at a very specific target market. And that is those tourism companies that are looking at attending the South African Tourism Indaba in May this year. Well, I think you should rethink, and I'll tell you why. Let's kick off. Now, there are quite a few videos and images attached to this, and if you subscribe to my channel and if you are in the tourism industry overseas, you will understand what I am talking about. You can even go through the archive and see for yourself. But anyway, here's the video. The South African Tourism Board has just lost their CEO, Sisa and Shona, after plausible allegations of fraud were raised against him. Yep, he's the guy who was supposed to be running this Indaba. He's been suspended for fraud. Let me introduce you to the biggest international fraud happening in South Africa right now. The suggestion that this country is safe for tourists to come and visit. That is a fraud. And if you want to be party to it, well, watch the rest of the video because it might cost you a whole lot. In less than 2 months, the South African Tourism Board will hold an Indaba or convention. It's happening in May this year. In South Africa to encourage people from around the world to come and spend some happy time in South Africa. Now look, it's undeniable that South Africa is some of the most beautiful locations in the world. I mean, I lived in South Africa for many years, and when it was a country that was safe to visit, it was beautiful, tranquil, peaceful, all the buzzwords you can think of. But even these are falling foul of corruption because of the way the country is being run in South Africa today by a corrupt ANC government and because of black equity empowerment. Just remember the acronym BEE, okay? And BEE results in utter incompetence at all levels in South African government in particular. I have many friends in the South African tourism industry, and they are devastated by what is happening in their country. And I know that none of them would dispute what I'm going to publish in this video. And what I'm publishing in this video, quite honestly, is just a fraction of what, if you go through my video archives and have a look, you will see so much more on this subject. It'll blow your mind completely. A lot of people, because the mainstream media, the fake news, don't cover this, do they? No, they have their own agenda. Sorry, I'm distracted. Okay, so let me get back to what I was saying. I have many friends in the South African tourism industry, and they are devastated by what is happening in their country. And I know that none of them would dispute what I'm going to publish in this video. This video is not an attack on South African tourism. That's very important. This is not an attack on South African tourism. It is a reality check of what is going on in South Africa. Two very, very different things. Okay, guys? It is an attack on the corrupt South African government and their lies. And from Ramaphosa down, they are all corrupt. They're all feeding from the trough of public purse. If the South African government got rid of BEE, remember that word? Black equity employment, BEE? That's a word you've got to learn before you go to South Africa, if you ever decide to go there. If the South African government got rid of BEE and put competent white management in industries and government, the country would have a chance. But they won't. They're all on the take until the last drop of blood is bled from the carcass they inherited in 1994. I'm talking about South Africa, which used to be a very, very rich country. In the meantime, South Africa is a very dangerous place to visit. Let me show you why. I will run several images and footage in this video. Let's start with a common practice now being practiced by black thugs on the roads leading out of Oliver Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg and on the N2 highway joining Cape Town Airport to the city. Now, the image I'm going to show you actually happened recently to Turkish Airlines flight attendants. So if you actually go and Google Turkish Island flight attendants, OR Tambo Mugging or something like that, you will see the original article. This is not something that I've made up. This is factual, and it's happening on the N2 between Cape Town Airport and the Cape Town city. It's the most dangerous piece of road in South Africa right now. And it's also happening around OR Tambo. Okay, so that's number one. Here comes the image, and then we'll go on to the next side. Okay, you haven't even got to your hotel and you've been mugged. That's nice, isn't it? I mean, the only thing you've had to go through is customs. And it's like when you go through customs, you come into the zoo. And I mean a zoo of crime. It is really bad. You actually walk into a country where everything changes. Now, let's look back at some facts before we go more into the crime side. In 1994, when South Africa was handed over to the ANC, it had profitable state-owned enterprises like Eskom and South African Airways. Okay, everyone in tourism knows about South African Airways. Today, South African Airways is bankrupt and not even a shadow of the airline it used to be, and no one can dispute that, nobody. Eskom, 25 years later, under black empowerment strategies, is bankrupt, in crisis, and load shedding is common. Load shedding means they don't just turn the power off in the area, it might be off for several hours. Nice. And they don't warn you when it's going to happen either, often. Why is Eskom in crisis? Because of huge corruption from the CEO down, and yet no one has ever got charged. Not surprisingly, really, when you consider how corrupt the ANC government has been under Zuma and the current president, Ramaphosa. The country has been fucking-moneyed. The CEO of Eskom is Fukamani Hadebe, and I'm serious, that's his name. You can go and Google it. So there's a new word for when you've been screwed. It's fukamanied. Okay? This toxic mix of corruption and incompetence has resulted in Eskom no longer maintaining its power stations. This is the result at some substations. So, in South Africa today, you never know when the lights are going to go out, do you? If a substation explodes like you saw it happen just now, and that was because of lack of maintenance, and only about 50% of the power stations are running at all. You know, the whole thing is just crazy in South Africa when it comes to electricity and Eskom. Okay, so one never knows when the lights are going to go out permanently in South Africa, but at least one can survive without electricity. I mean, that's a fact. You can still survive without electricity if you're a tourist. But you can survive without drinking water. And here comes the rub. Large residential towns and cities like Grahamstown and the Eastern Cape and Port Shepstone south of Durban, just to name two of many, now depend on farmers' borehole water as their taps are not working and no fresh water. And not only that, many regions of South Africa, the tap water that they do get is contaminated because it hasn't been treated and because the sewage has now become into the mix. It is absolutely revolting. And that is the reality of what's happening in South Africa today. The sewage in South Africa is no longer managed. It is openly pouring into rivers and dams. In the footage that follows, you'll see the once pristine Vaal Dam with crap. Yeah, I'm talking raw crap floating on it. Tons of it. Not just the odd little bit. Tons of raw human crap floating in the Vaal Dam. It is disgusting. And it's not in isolation. It's happening all over South Africa. They're just not talking about it. And the mainstream media is not talking about it. No wonder they say drinking water in South Africa is no longer safe. This is what the Canadian Travel Advisory says on this particular subject. So there you see it. Tap water in South Africa is not safe. And when I was there back in 2011-12, it was fine. The whole system is collapsing in South Africa because of BEE, incompetence, and a corrupt ANC government. And for the disbelievers, here is a video footage of what I'm talking about. Phone any South African friend in South Africa and they'll confirm what I'm claiming about sewage now in the rivers and dams in South Africa. Now, the dam you're going to see is actually the Vaal Dam, and you can see the crap in the water. Here we go.
20 Februarie 2019. Ons pragtige Vaaldam met sulke rou korse sewage. Alles wat hier ronddryf. Hulle sê die Vaalrivier is erg. Hulle moet die Vaaldam kom kyk. Waar kom hierdie rou sewage vandaan? Dit is net die onbevoegdheid van bestuur om die sewageplase te beheer en te bestuur. Kyk waarvanaf kom dit. Kyk hoe lyk die groot dam daar diep binne. Kyk waarvanaf kom dit. Sis.
Okay, what are two of the most important daily services of any tourist to any country, including South Africa? Water and electricity. Now, this is just a starting point we're working on here, guys. This is just a starting point, okay? Don't even raise the subject of transport. What I'm going to show you now will make your hairs stand up on the back of your neck. Black African protesters are now often blocking public roads with rubbish and burning tires. Of course, the inept South African police service is nowhere to be seen. If you're in a tourist bus or in a car, like those Turkish flight attendants, which we saw earlier on, you are on your own. Great place to introduce your clients, isn't it? Roadblocks are just part of the dangers facing tourists in South Africa. What about carjackings, hijackings, and even worse, because it happens every day in South Africa? What about tourists going on walks through the bush near Cape Town? Well, good luck with that. Watch the video and see why.
Up here, we're free, bound only by frozen memories. Lost in time, racing on these broken dreams tonight. Up here, we're free, bound only by frozen memories. Lost in time, racing all these broken dreams tonight.
Okay, talking about attacks and crime, did I mention to you that South Africa is the rape capital of the world? I'll repeat that. It is the rape capital of the world. And very, very few men get arrested for rape. Don't believe me? Just read this. And I have to tell you that in a survey that was done, 1 in 4 black Africans in South Africa admitted that they had been involved in rape, and often it was multiple rapes against different women. This is not something that is unusual. This is part of their culture. It is just disgusting. It's the way the men feel empowered. Okay, now you have an overseas tourism company and you are promoting South Africa as a safe destination for tourists to go and enjoy Africa's unquestioned beauty and splendor. What happens if one of those people you recommend falls victim of rape, theft, or even worse? Because there's something like 60 murders that are recorded a day. It's probably a lot higher in effect. A lot of people probably just get put in shallow graves. No one ever thinks about it. Now, getting back to this question, who is criminally liable if you suggest to someone that they come to South Africa for a nice, relaxing, peaceful holiday, and they're a victim of one of these terrible, heinous crimes? I have a feeling you might be, because you know what's going on in South Africa. Not you, perhaps, but your company. Same thing, really. Consider this fact when contemplating this question. And this fact is all about HIV and AIDS. South Africa has the highest AIDS rate in the world. Something like 20% of adult people in South Africa suffer from AIDS. Do you really want to put your clients in danger's way for the rest of their lives? That's if they survive a criminal attack. Okay. Remember John Wayne and those Wild West movies with the guns blowing off all over the place, and you know the sheriff hanging around and the saloon and all this sort of stuff, running around on horses and whatever? Well, guess what? This footage I'm going to show you now was taken in Cape Town, and it's only a week or two old. It is gangs in Cape Town having a shootout with guns. Yep, and Cape Town is probably the safest part of South Africa for tourism right now, which really makes you think, doesn't it? This is what happened to a little resort just before Christmas last year in the once peaceful town of Vryheid in KwaZulu-Natal. Vryheid now faces unsafe tap water, growing murders, crime, and basically what is unfolding across the rest of South Africa. I will put a link below to the full video so you can read it for yourself. This was a a beautiful resort that was attacked by a gang of black thugs. And as I said, this only happened a couple of months ago. Okay, so how do the whites still living in South Africa today survive? First thing you need to understand is that about 1 million or 25% of the population that remain in South Africa today live in abject poverty because of affirmative action and BEE, which basically means whites cannot get work regardless of their qualifications. You know, I always tell the story about what happened at the Mary Moffat Museum in Griekwetown. Now, it's a small museum, but it was a beautifully run museum. The old curator was a white lady. She was in her 60s, and when she reached retirement age, the museum authority said, look, we don't need you anymore. And she said, look, who's going to take over? This is this remote little town in the middle of nowhere. And they said, don't worry about that. We will sort that out. We don't need you anymore. So they pushed her off, and she was happy to work there free of charge because she loved what she was doing. But she was basically thrown out. You know who they put in as a curator? And I'm not joking. This is serious. You can go and check this out for yourself. The cleaning lady, the coloured cleaning lady, became the curator of the Mary Moffat Museum, whereas Hetta Hager, who was the white curator who had been there for over 30 years, had skills, she had experience, she had done the courses, she knew what she was doing. And this is why South Africa is falling in a heap, because of BEE. People with absolutely unassociated qualifications, well, they don't have any qualifications, are being put in positions that they have absolutely no idea what they're doing. That's how crazy it is. Okay, now, just to add to that, these policies, which were brought up in 1994 under the Rainbow Nation. Remember the Rainbow Nation? Forget it. It's not a Rainbow Nation anymore, believe me. We're supposed to be, we're talking about BEE policies, black empowerment, was supposed to be a temporary stopgap in 1994, but the ANC government has enforced them. Now the ANC government are bringing in a policy to steal land off the white farmers and landowners to garnish votes. It is just a crude, raw way to garnish votes. While all this is going on, there is a genocide happening against minority groups by the very people you will meet in May at your tourism in Indaba in South Africa. And I will show you a short video that confirms what I'm talking about.
Ek kon eers nie praat nie en toe my kind begin skree, het ek saam met hom geskree en hulle het na hom toe gehardloop en die vuurwapen teen sy kop gedruk. En gesê ons moet stil bly en ek moet die huis oopsluit.
I opened the door and I was grabbed by a guy, put his arm around my neck and held a gun to my head.
They put a carpet over me, and then they start hammering me with his 9mm on my head.
As I went down, the guy hit me behind the head with a stick, and as I stood up, obviously the shot went.
Hier vasgehou met die vuurwapen teen hom en my een kant toe gevat en ek was baie bang. Ek het die hele tyd gebid, asseblief Here, moenie laat hulle ons seermaak nie, asseblief.
The whole time they'd held the shotgun to my forehead, the leader, let's call him the leader, and he kept saying, you're going to die tonight, you're going to die tonight.
En van daar af, ja, jy's bang vir elke geluidjie.
Well, a recently published report by the Forum Research Centre also reveals that drills, blowtorches and bleach have all been used as assault weapons against farmers. Now, the issue of the white majority in the farming community has long been stirring controversy. Efforts to redistribute land to black farmers have been launched by the government, which has stressed, though, that it doesn't intend to begin the mass seizure of white-owned farms. The recent spike in attacks has put the issue on the radar, but violence against farm owners has actually been happening for decades. And while most of the victims are white, some say the attacks are much less to do with racism and more to do with wider social problems in South Africa.
The nature of the attacks is disproportionate. We're not among those claiming there is a white genocide or a crime against humanity, but it is a serious crisis, and there are signs that it is only going to get worse.
We're on record as dismissing the white genocide narrative. It does not exist. It is a fantasy. That being said, you do get into issues of what motivates these crimes, and an argument could be made that in certain instances, reckless racial rhetoric may be a contributing factor. Once again, these are all expressed as possibilities. Commercial farmers tend to be disproportionately white, although not entirely. I think it's very important, in seeking solutions, not to become trapped in that racial prison. We are aware of instances where black people have been attacked, and also I think it must be pointed out that part of the whole farm attack and farm murder phenomenon is the vulnerability of workers, who frequently tend to be black. And there have been instances where black people have risked their lives to protect white people under attack, and vice versa, as a case we followed in the Free State.
Okay, there is so much more I could say. I mean, really. And seriously, if you go to my homepage and just click on videos and just start going through some of the old videos, you will see so much confirmation of what I'm talking about here. What is happening in South Africa today is disgusting, and to bring tourists into the line of fire is foolish and dangerous. Let me just leave you with these thoughts. By attending or supporting the Indaba, the South African tourism Indaba, you are A, putting your own clients at great risk if they come to South Africa, and B, will be party to the ongoing genocide against white South Africans. I am calling for tourism companies to boycott the South African Indaba scheduled for May 2019 in South Africa. There is so much more I could say, and I will continue to expose things as they happen. And that's why I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel so you can be kept informed. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. I want to see this tourism Indaba just closed down in a heap. The world needs to start waking up as to what is happening in South Africa. It is not a safe tourist destination. And for those who still promote it as such, you have been officially warned. To all my South African viewers and people who are facing this terrible situation, high five, guys. My thoughts and my prayers go out to you. Bye for now.